You're listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracy Jones.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Tremendous Leadership, Leaders on Leadership podcast, where we pull back the curtain on leadership and talk with leaders of all ages and stages of life about what it takes to pay the price of leadership. And today, I'm very excited to introduce you to my guest, Dr. Lee Hardin. Welcome, Lee.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. So let me tell you a little bit about this Dr. Lee Hardin. Dr. Hardin, he holds a PhD in educational psychology from Temple. He has a master's in instructional technology from Bloomsburg, and he is
Mhm.
currently an active Army duty officer with 23 years of service in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard. And he is also an Iraqi veteran from 2005 to 2006 at Ramadi in Iraq. Lee is also an adjunct professor in the College of Education and Human Development at Temple Research Interests in executive function, self-regulation, gamification, and instructional design. And most of all, he is the father of 3 boys and has been happily married for 11 years. Lee, we're just delighted to have you today.
I should hire you for all of my introductions. That was wonderful. No, thank you so much. That was so nice. Thank you.
You're welcome, and I'm really excited for our listeners out here. I always like to tell you how Lee and I connected. Lee reached out to me on LinkedIn. I think you probably
Of
saw
all
some of the
places.
American College of Veteran
Mhm.
Services and just said, "Hey, has a PhD. Hey, is a vet," and just connected. And so I'm so excited we did connect. And I said, after hearing your educational background and your love of continuous learning and your love of our country, I said, I got to have you on this podcast. So thank you for saying yes to my request.
Thank you so much as well. Great resources too, and especially that we're so, local to Carlisle and all the other military, there's a lot of military history and heritage and a lot of connections that I did not realize. The community's large. So I'm thankful to tap into it. So this is great to meet you as well.
Thank you. And you got to meet, actually serve under one of our previous podcast guests, Major
Yes.
General John Kronsky, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes. I could speak accolades upon accolades about that man. He's a wonderful person, and had been very influential uh, in my career, and also for my father as well, who served with him. And I was amazed that literally once we started connecting, and I saw he was just on your podcast a few months ago. I listened to the episode. It was great, and he's written 2 books as well. I've had many interactions with him over the years, and I'll definitely share a few stories here and there too. So for sure, he's great.
He is. Well, I'll put the links in there for our listeners too, in case you missed that. We got so much positive feedback on that, as I'm sure we'll get on yours, Lee. And everybody, this is Lee's very first podcast.
Very first, number one.
Congratulations.
Starting at the top. Absolutely.
That's what
Yes.
I
Thank you
told him.
so
I said,
much.
oh, I pity anybody else. I'm just kidding. All right. So listen, we're going to get talking about leadership. And Lee, my father, Charlie Tremendous Jones, one of his speeches was called The Price of Leadership. And he talked about, hey, after growing an insurance industry, growing his own consulting company, he said, hey, for you to be in leadership, you're going to have to pay the price. So you're not a lino, a leader in name only. And the first price of leadership is loneliness. And we've all heard that.
Mhm.
That's why a lot of people don't want to go into leadership because they still want to have friends and family over for dinner, like
Absolutely.
I was in a family business. But can you talk to us about what loneliness means to you as a leader and maybe share a time where you went through a season of loneliness?
Oh, absolutely. And I think after reading some of the tenets that, your father brought up, that's probably one of the biggest ones that really hit me. And every organization is different. Every industry is different. Some places have a hierarchy that you kind of start at maybe at the bottom, entry level, and you kind of work your way up. And it kind of hinted toward there, which when you explained it, you make a lot of friends along the way. And it gets very difficult when you become into those supervisory, managerial, director, executive level positions. And it's hard to cut ties, but you still also want to keep that interpersonal connection you made with people. So military is a very small community. You're always around the people you always meet. And but in the academic field, it's very much the same. The big thing that I think that I encountered was that we all have our own passions. There's certain things that we really like. And sometimes you join an organization where the culture is a little bit different. And there may be something that, you coming in as a leader, there's predecessors prior to you that have set certain standards, certain tones, good or bad, may work, may not, and making that assessment and trying to figure out, okay, well, now that I'm the new person in here, how to give my flavor, my vision as well, while also ensuring that people are still productive, happy to be there, and also buying into what I'm trying to get them all on board with. So the big thing for me was that I had a master's in instructional technology. And one thing that I was really more tech forward than a lot of people that, for example, this is when I first joined Temple, gosh, 12 years ago. My role was in charge of actually teaching all the teachers. I was running faculty workshops to improve them and their abilities to actually lead various online courses, asynchronous courses, actually developing it. PhD people are wonderful. They are incredibly knowledgeable and smart, right? Of course. They know their research interests very well, but not a lot of them can utilize technology. They can't convey communication very well. They may know a lot of things, but maybe communicating and actually being a good teacher is sometimes a challenge. So they take these workshops for self-development, which is wonderful. And I was leading and spearheading a lot of the HR initiatives for these technology workshops. And the one thing that I thought was interesting was that and this is maybe for some of the younger listeners out there slash older listeners. If you ever been to a conference where a speaker had a PowerPoint up and they asked you to pull out your phone and maybe buzz on in with a certain answer, like to a question or something like that, it's kind of like polling the audience, giving feedback, and also kind of getting people engaged. The technology at the time when I first joined Temple, they were making students buy these remote control devices, these clickers basically from the bookstore. It cost a lot of money. And there was a lot of problems with it. And I'm like, kids have smartphones. This is not a new technology. This is something that, a lot of other places use, a lot of corporations use. We should be embracing a lot of the new changes and kind of getting rid of some of this old stuff because there's so many problems. And the big driver of that was I was noticing that how many complaints were coming from students, how many calls were going into the tech center. Their clickers don't work. I lost my clicker. Faculty were upset with it because they weren't getting accurate results and data. So, sometimes, when you're lonely with a passion, like, okay, this is a technology we probably should be going in. It's not only it's hard when there's people that may not understand it. And they may be also afraid to invest in it. They may be afraid to spend money on it. Also learning something new. We as adults with, adult learning theories here, we're resistant to change. So it's trying to get people invested in buying in. It's sometimes I feel the biggest challenge that I have with the loneliest factor. A lot of things that we come from different organizations, you're being hired for a reason because you have an expertise. How can you also get people at least maybe not completely passionate about it, but they can understand that there's a benefit? That is the biggest thing that I think that sometimes that has trickle effects to everybody
And
else. So
that's so
that's the hard thing.
valuable because you are an outsider and you were hired for
Mhm.
something, and because you as an early adopter, you may be the only one that sees it. What would you recommend out there? Is there a certain time frame, or how do you get more of the? You always have some naysayers, and that's fine.
Yeah.
We know
Mhm.
that. But what would you recommend to people when they're in that phase? Because that is a little unsettling. You're brought in, you see it, but you
Mhm.
don't know who else is going to see it.
Apps. Oh, that's 100%. So I think that if there's reasons why changes needs to occur, maybe the company is here and there is a now new direction, a new end goal in sight that we need to be at this level, maybe because the current operation is not meeting quotas or certain standards. A solution and intervention has to be brought in there. And you're right. Assessing the culture now and knowing, are the people unhappy? Or how the previous administration or certain things were going on? Was there some negativity? Are they really stuck in their ways for a certain reason? Trying to really pull and get as much data information is so key. So understanding where people are, bringing them into the room, having candid conversations, getting opinions, and then trying to then pivot a little bit to show that this is what you currently have, but here's a benefit that we probably need. And I think you would agree, and try to get them with that type of terminology and language. Can they understand that there's a benefit here that maybe would reduce the amount of work you're doing, or maybe improve communications in a way, or there would maybe a faster process of getting from this step to this step if we just do this new way? And it could fail, yes, of course, but also understanding and explaining risks too. But I think making it sound that it's going to benefit them, that it's going to make their life a little bit easier or the process a little bit easier. I think that sometimes people in certain situations are, you know, depending on how long they've been there or whatever their role may be, they're looking in their small bubble and how it affects them or their team. If they're a good manager, a good leader, they're also looking out for their people below as well. So is this creating more work? Is this going to hinder my progress? So trying to bridge those gaps and finding the best solution sometimes is that's the way that I always sell it. Is let's look at the organizational benefit, then let's look at the team benefit. Those are the two
Love
ways
it.
that I always go with it.
Love it. Okay, Lisa, so I love that you talked about getting the people on board, especially as an educator. So I read this book, it came out, my goodness, probably in the 50s, How to Tell What You Know. And it was about how to teach foremen to teach managers. And you know, you used to
Mm,
go out behind the back of the shop and just pummel each other. That's that's how you settle stuff. But we don't really do that anymore. But
wonderful.
anyways, they said people can only learn new knowledge when you put it on an overlay of something they already know. So to your
Yes.
point, when you are coming on with something completely new to them, you have to drip it
Hmm.
down and build on something, even if you have a PhD or two or three. That's how we learn. And I can remember when people would
Hmm.
tell me stuff, I'm like, it's flying over my head. I got nothing to link it to. But once you help me, because knowledge can only be built on knowledge, you can't just input something new. It has to be traced back. So for educators in loneliness, it's a matter of you know, people say, well, they just don't get it or they don't like change. No, that's never the case. I mean, we're all in the
Hmm.
world. It's 2003. Okay. We may
Yes.
not be a fan of change, but there's something else going on there. We're having trouble linking it to something in the real world, or there's a trust issue, which doesn't mean we don't like change. It
Hmm.
means we don't trust the person giving us that. So I love
Oh,
that you really
goodness.
talked about bringing that down to, especially to very smart educators who get that knowledge is always changing. And so
I,
they're not afraid of new
I
knowledge. That's what we get paid to do is find new knowledge.
absolutely. And to add to your point, absolutely. I think in every industry is different, of course, different listeners out there. And what is the demographic? What is the client? What is the customer? Especially when it comes to academia. Yeah, think about, you know, they're young, you know, 18 to 22-year olds, a primary demographic there, and they're used to using a lot of technology that's so common sense to them that you have educators who are very experienced, very knowledgeable, and probably very good teachers. But again, you know, organizations change software all the time. They upgrade new, you know, systems, different types of websites, different types of computers. There's a lot of things that are just obstacles to overcome, I guess you can say, that
Yeah,
also get in the way of learning. And I think that's the bureaucracy of every single kind of industry you're dealing with. How to reach your client, in addition to all the other tasks that kind of support and supplement it. You can
right.
still reach them, but it may not be the most effective way anymore in 5 years. So
Well,
always
and
trying to, yeah.
oh yeah, well, and reaching is really teaching. And the more I
Mhm.
stop consulting or trying to motivate people and just teach, I mean, it's remarkable. And can we talk about like all the great things from when social media first came out? I know kids, you can laugh, but this was like a long time ago, and Twitter like 13 years ago. I'm like, I'm not doing this. And somebody says, here, let me show you. And they set it up. And I'm like, wow, that was easy.
Yep.
Just like Chat GPT. I'm like, well, what is this?
Absolutely.
What this is dumbing people down and this is an abomination. And then somebody says,
Hmm.
just put something in there and type it. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And it's just
Hmm.
but I was so reticent because I didn't know what I didn't know. They call it your unconsciously
Yes.
unconscious. And
Yes.
now I know. And when people see this isn't that big of a threat, it isn't that big of a deal. And
Mhm.
boy, the benefits of it are just remarkable. So
Absolutely.
I was feeling lonely for a while because I had so many people I needed to give me product and I was waiting for them. And I'm like, as a solopreneur, it's already lonely enough. But then when you're waiting for people, and I'm like, this has allowed me to get 10 times the work done and
Yeah.
really keep focusing on my interaction with people and not be in this lonely space of I can't move forward. So that's just
Mhm.
my chat GPT plug right there. If you haven't
And
tried
it's
it,
and I think that a lot of people still have those reservations, and you're right. And is it a perfect system? No. There's still a lot of things that need to be explored, but I think if it's managed responsibly, right? You know, responsibly embracing. It's like I would just say, we need to you know, welcome something that's new, but also being cautious on how it's being used. I know some people are worried about, oh, this will replace a job here and there. Not necessarily. It depends on a lot of there's a lot of nuances and human experiences that come into a lot of the work that we do, especially when it comes to leadership and managing people and resources. So AI, can they do that? Not necessarily. So
right.
maybe. maybe in the future, sure, but I don't think that's something that we're going to have to necessarily deal with regulation and government oversight and also industry oversight. How can we are going to choose how we want to use this, right? So
Right.
so yeah, absolutely, to your point. I think just exploring is good, but being always cautious and asking questions, why, how, and that's going to help frame your mindset moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. Okay, so we talked about loneliness. How about weariness? And my dad would
Oh,
always tell me,
yeah,
Tracy, if you're going to be out there leading, you're going to get some people that do way more than what's expected and a lot that don't.
yeah,
And Lee, even in the military, you think everybody in the military is, we're people just like everybody else. And there's super soldiers, and then there's people that are just checking the clock until they're retired on active duty, we would call them road sergeants,
of
and it's
course,
like, oh my
retired
gosh.
active duty. Yes,
So
ROD. Yeah.
how do you stay in top fighting form? You're teaching, you're a father, you're a husband, you're creating content, and you're serving in the military and deploying. How do you combat weariness?
Oh, yeah, that's so loneliness is number one. I would say weariness is right behind there. And there is burnout is inevitable no matter who you are. There's different types of burnout, whether it is, physical or mental, even emotional, spiritual, whatever it may be that you're experiencing, because life throws things at us that are also additional obstacles that get in the way of us and our trajectory. It's a lot right now working two jobs. I'm very thankful for my family. My family is a bedrock, and I learned that I could not always do it by myself. I think, when I was a young soldier, I very hungry, wanting to get out there and do everything. That was great. That was a good time in my life. But, as new responsibilities came forward, I had to also push aside the persona of being so strong and tough and asking for help, and not being afraid to do so. And I think a lot of people are afraid to ask even their peers, and even asking your team, even if you have subordinates or other people out there, they want everyone to succeed. They don't want to have trauma or trouble at work. And if there's a way that, people can pitch in, great. And I think also with weariness, it's your own responsibility though, to understand what helps you blow off some steam. For me, I'm very active. I've always been active. I was a collegiate athlete. I swam, in college. And though I miss the water, and I wish I can get in the water more often, I can't. But with my kids, teaching them to swim and things like that, it's great. But working out is probably much the one thing that I'll always dedicate 30 minutes of my time. I can do 30 minutes, and in various ways. And it's not like I'm working out like I used to when I was younger. Yes, I'm in my 40s, right? But father time catches up with you, right? Flexibility and mobility is key. And the one thing that I've learned in the last 5 years with, all the new responsibilities that I've been dealing with is that the one other thing that would make it more nagging and terrible is if I also have bad knees or a bad back or things that are hurting me. Like now I'm also dealing with these mental issues and these things that are at work and all these tasks I got to deal with. And now I have to add on an injury or something like that. That's not something that I ever want to go through ever again. I've had some injuries before, and it just makes things a lot more complicated. So I feel that even if it is yoga or stretching or anything like that, where that's getting you up and moving, it's a part of self-care. And that's one thing that you can't make others do for you. It's not an other care, self-care. It comes in many forms. Reading books are always great too for the mental fatigue. And if you're even, some people have a negative concept of maybe binge watching a show. But there are some times where you do need to turn off a little bit and not be the director, the president, the whatever your title may be, and just tap into some creative or imaginative aspects. For me, and now being a parent, my kids are getting to the age where we were being careful with video games and stuff like that, and that gets a bad rap, but I'm very passionate about that. And I think that there's a lot of puzzle process and there's a lot of great benefits of it too. And see my kids light up when they're overcoming a challenge and working with them and playing it together, you're creating memories and it's fun. So seeing their joy also kind of is residual too. A smile is contagious. So I think those are the things that I tap into as much as I can. It is just a little bit of time for me, but a little bit of time for my family, and it kind of sets things all in the right way. So that's for me.
I love the physical aspect of it. And, for those out there that have been in the military, we were taught early on, we were gym rats. I mean, your physical
Yeah.
conditioning was an integral part of it. But
Yeah.
for people that, you say mid 40s, so people are like, well, yeah, he's still in the prime. We're all in our prime. And I don't care if you go away from it for 20 years, your body doesn't forget. I mean, there have been times where I went away from working out for 15 years. If I'm back in the gym for
Absolutely.
4 weeks, I'm telling you, I am almost where I was before, honestly. So
Absolutely.
your muscle memory, and also if you weren't used to working out,
Mhm.
you look at the people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, we got people walking around. You got to finish the race strong and take care of the shell,
Yeah.
and you will live. There's no reason why we shouldn't all live to be 120 if we stay high weight proportionate and stay away from the big lifestyle illnesses, the stress, smoking, drinking, bad
Mhm.
eating. The body's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing that God created. So that really we gotta watch out for that. And like you said, listen to yourself. You nobody can do. I
Yes.
can't read your mind. I'm not God, and you got to take care of yourself.
100%. Absolutely. And yeah, it's good to indulge and, maybe a nice dessert here and there. Of course, yeah, live, be happy with it. But, there's, like you said, it's never too late to start. There's going to be benefits that come from it, even in a week or two of
Right.
just having some consistency and getting out of bed maybe a little bit faster and not feeling a little bit of back pain and stuff. Those are the things you're kind of working for. It's longevity. It's feeling good and being able to that I think that unlocks more potential and other opportunities to do other things as well. And that's where I'm looking at my kids and seeing how active they are. I want to be active for them. That's what I want to do. I want to get out there and play ball and do all those good things. And that's the things that get outside and enjoy the weather that we have and see the beautiful fall colors and stuff. That's the stuff that I want to do. So yeah, I don't, it's staying focused and making a routine, a regimen to really, some people may see that as an extra burden. It's not though. It's a way to also keep your own spirituality, your own mind free to move on to other tasks too. So that's the way I look at it.
I mean, God says the body's a temple. I mean, so
Mhm.
so respect it and take care of it. And the other thing is for everybody's aging, um, either you're equipped to take care of yourself, or you've got to have somebody take care of you. I'm
Mhm.
strong. I thank God for my health. I take my health very serious, but I am here because I know I want to be able to take care of people. So that's what I
Yes.
tell people too. It's kind of a selfless thing. It's not a house like, why should I do this? Why should you do this? Because either you're going to be in a home or something, or on what do they say? Like half of Americans have been on a medicine for X number of years, and I'm not talking about genetic stuff. I'm talking about stuff that you should deal with and then get off. So it's not a good habit, and it will there's always repercussions. There's always unintended consequences. And like I said, your body, if left to its right thing, and a lot of natural things I'm into, because we were in the military with our clearances, there's a lot of things I couldn't take, and I'm thankful I couldn't take them. I had to figure out a
Yeah.
natural way to solve anxiety or
Mhm.
depression or whatever I did,
Mhm.
and I came through it as a
Yes.
situational thing.
Yes, and that goes back to the first point too, being able to open up and also seeing if you can't do certain things, finding resources because there's plenty out there and there's
Oh
always
yeah.
alternative forms and things that can help you out. And people have expertise in different areas and stuff. So yeah, leverage that stuff, That's
Yeah.
that's 100%.
Yeah, excellent. All right, Lisa, thank you. So we've talked about loneliness, we've talked about weariness. The next topic my father talked about was abandonment. And again, I saw your puppy earlier. So for us, abandonment kind of has a negative connotation. You abandon your dog, or boo, or fear of abandonment. One of the fears, people
Mhm.
stay in toxic relationship because they're bad is better than nothing. But he said, Tracy, abandonment is really um stop thinking about like what you like and want to think about in favor of what you ought and need to think about. So it's abandoning the things that are not the highest and best use of your calling, whether it be a sideline, whether it be a habit, whether it be a friend. And
Mhm.
he's talking about pruning and getting very focused on the battle plan of what's next. So can you talk
Yes.
to us about that? You're juggling a lot of plates. How do you stay really focused on what you need to be focused on? Because I'm sure you get asked to do 100 different things on any given week.
I feel yes, and I'm sure everyone does. Everyone's got different situations, and that's kind of where really reaching out to you and kind of like starting this journey. I realized that I'm living two lives. I'm in the military, and there's a lot of different types of things and demands. But also, in the same time, I went out on my own, and I was doing night school. And I spent, I don't even know, 11 years of my life in college. Getting a master's and a PhD and everything. And it was that was a very lonely journey too, because you're working a full day, 9 to 5, and at night just spending lots of hours in classes, then writing papers, and then now kids are also involved too. So um the thing that I kept reminding myself, and I'm very thankful for my parents. My parents, my dad was a active duty service member. I was an Army brat, born in Maryland, and we moved around. And my mom, she was a nurse, and she did for many at certain periods too. Though she was the breadwinner. She was making money because nursing is a great field to be into as well. And the long-term goal that was kind of established early on was I looked at, what my parents did, and they were very supportive and encouraging. And my brother and I were the first people to go to college, and we wanted to get a degree. And I didn't necessarily know, even while I'm doing all these things, what I wanted to do until probably my mid-20s. And I realized the passion that I had to be a teacher, to be an educator. And as a leader, you have to be that too, right? It's not just by being in a classroom and being a professor. There is things that you have to manage, and I think there's three major skills that I keep looking at with my own personality that I have some strengths and certain weaknesses, and I think the major end goal is where I want to be is trying to find that the military is not going to last forever. How can I improve myself so I can better then also transition into other areas in academia or corporate or whatever it may be, and also still have that same skills that I've developed in the military, but also looking at ways of improving myself and getting myself out there to learn new things. I don't know everything. A degree is a wonderful thing. Having letters and stuff next to your name is awesome, but time keeps moving forward, research and new education. So there's a lot of things that I'm always be passionate about. It's going to be education. So I would like to see that, where am I going to be in 10 years from now? I'm hoping that I am with a team that is just as energized and fired up about certain things like what I currently am now. It's a great camaraderie thing and a great morale thing, but also being a person that is very empathetic and able to take care of people. So I look at, I guess, with where I want to go is I want to be continuing on in teaching and educating, but also I want to dive into other realms of research and maybe write a book and maybe even do another study or two. And hopefully it would help future veterans. Or maybe do a study that's actually helping out mid-level small leaders, impacts of training. So those are the things that I feel that how can I leave a lasting mark? And it's hard to see those faraway goals sometimes. So making long-term goals is important, but the short-term ones too are just as important. What can you do in the next year? What can you do the next 2 years? When
Yeah.
can I do my next phase of military education? Do I want to get another degree? I don't know about that one. But at least where can I focus my time to make it most beneficial to meet that final goal? So, and to one thing, I guess to wrap a bow on it, my research actually was on executive function. An executive function is a set of skills, and we all have it. It's the what makes you a competent human being. You have certain needs and certain decisions to make every day. Executive function is the set of skill of you establishing a goal and then thinking about what are the best ways available to you at this point to get that goal. And then the final piece is actually regulating your behavior to do it. And that is a problem with many people because we have different motivations, extrinsic and intrinsic. Certain things are more prioritized, something's more rewarding to us, or more gravitated towards this. But think of people that, oh, New Year's comes around and I'd like to have a New Year's resolution where I would only lose weight. Well, they have established a goal. They think about certain things that they maybe want to cut out of their life. Some of those bad habits, maybe no more soda, it's a lot of sugar. I can't really have that. But then really the hard part though is the regulating the behavior, right? To actually staying on track. So sometimes making goals, which are very, very nice, they have their own hardships. So finding the smaller, achievable goals to build to the long-term goal is probably the best way. So I'm trying right now to explore where am I going? I have an open road ahead of me. I still have a few years of military service left, but at the same time, I want to make sure that that time is also going to be beneficial to moving to the next step of my life.
Well, you
So yeah,
really,
that's
the
yeah,
goals that you talked about, and you talked about your ideal, and that's the wonderful exercises. Here's where we are, here's where we're going to be. And anything that isn't up here and down here, you don't drag with you. But a lot of
yes,
people, they struggle with abandonment because they haven't really determined exactly what they want. And
right.
so if you haven't really taken the time to understand who you are, you can't understand anybody else until you understand yourself. And that's
Hmm.
really what leadership is, self-awareness. Now I know me, now I know how I'm perceived. I know who's going to get me. I know who's not going to get me. But I think that's beautiful. You really talk about your goals, and then anything that you can say, oh yeah, eventually this is going to all dovetail into getting me where I want to be in 10 years, stays on the plate. The rest, I'm going to have to let it. And you even talked about it with getting your PhD. When you go back in for school, any advanced degree or certification, you have to take stuff off your plate. You have to abandon things that maybe you
Yeah.
did before, maybe go into mixers or, fun or vacation, because you can't do that right now because your end goal is this. And there's only a certain
Hmm.
amount of hours in a day. So I really like that the goals will really help you stay at the forefront
Hmm.
of what gets packed in the bag for the next level of the ascent and what stays at base camp. And you're like, I outgrew this, don't need this anymore.
Saying no is a very powerful thing, and
Oh
it's
my
tough to
gosh.
do, especially with friends and other things. But sometimes, making sure you circle back what does matter to you.
Right.
Don't abandoning is tough. That's a very, very strong
Well,
word.
it's a death.
But if there's any,
It's something you did once. Saying no always means you're something's dying off. But that's okay, because abandonment means the new growth can't happen until the dead, diseased, or dying are pruned off. That's like, I know we're getting
yes.
into fall, but come spring, you whack everything off, because if you don't, there's not explosive growth. So you can't keep growing and doing all the old things you used to do. We're not made that way. We can't do it. And we go through seasons where now we're in this season. Like you're coming out of possibly your military season. I did that many, many years ago, and I had to go, okay,
Hmm.
so that worked for me then. Now what is it? What do I bring along the way that is still all the skill sets? But there's things I had to stop doing, and relationships I let go of because we're onto something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I think that there's always going to be transitions with every type of job too. It's not just the military out there that people are going to retire and move on, and you got
Mm,
that pension or you got whatever it may be, right? There's certain goals you may have attained, and now you want to move on to the next set, and that's great. So I'm not sure exactly, even for me in my stage, maybe that what is it even out there, and that's kind of where I feel that I'm doing my own research to also see what
yes.
other opportunities could there be. Maybe academia is where I would want to end up, but what if there's an opportunity for me to also help government work, or if it is something in the corporate sector that I can get really passionate about as well. So I'm not saying no to anything. It's more so seeing what is the best way that I can move forward that will also help enhance my family's life and my value. So yeah.
Right. But you're doing the heavy lifting. You're figuring out what you
Yes.
want. And people just say,
Yes.
well, what's next? Well, I haven't really thought about it. Well, you're going to have to. We
You're gonna
don't
have to.
we retire. We don't retire from something. We retire to something, and that takes
Yes.
strategic planning, tactical.
Mhm.
It takes setting some real things together. Otherwise, we have friends that got out of the military after 20 or 30 years, and that's it. Um, and
Yeah.
inevitably, they didn't live long, unfortunately, because if you don't have a purpose and stuff like that, you're just like,
Hmm.
what else is there?
Yeah. And that's you know, again, for some people out there, maybe that they reach a certain point there, and that's great. But I do feel sometimes, yeah, why settle when there's other things that you can definitely embark in, journey and embrace, you know? So I completely agree. You're retiring to something new,
Yes.
and that's excellent. Yeah, I think that, you know, I don't want to think of my life even as phases of employment. I don't want to think of my life as phases of like the jobs I had, or the settings I was in. It's more so I feel that there's always continual growth, right? And there's certain things that you are going to outgrow. There's certain skills and certain things that I used to do that it's not saying that I'm above them by any mean, but they don't provide value to me anymore. There's new goals in mind that I need to focus on, and maybe publishing a book, that's going to take time. I'm going to have to do maybe a page a night, and it may take 270 days to do it, but if I stick to it, that with one page a day, it can get done. So
That's
yeah.
exciting. I love it. Okay, abandonment. And then lastly, Lee, my father talked about vision, and vision, for leadership, the Bible's clear, without vision, people perish. And I can remember hearing vision as a young girl and thinking, oh, I'm looking at these guys. They were born with it. It's just, they're at a different level. Their brains are wired differently. And my dad was always like, Tracy, vision is simply seeing what needs to be done and then doing it. So it had this future
Mhm.
aspect, but then also this pragmatic, um, tangible, tactical aspects. So can you share with us what vision looks like for you and how you continue to hone and refine your vision?
I would say in the military there, and this is something that you're familiar with too. It's not just the military too. I think that this translates to business as well. There's this concept of shared vision. There's this concept of it's not just my vision. I want people that are working with me to understand that, okay, though this is kind of what I see, I'd also like to get that feedback from what other people's perceived problems with. And this kind of goes back a little bit with General Gronsky. We were together overseas in Ramadi for it was an 18-month deployment, and he had a very large problem set. And this kind of is how the military hierarchy is. It's commander's intent. It is the trickle down effect of this is what the overall goal needs to accomplish. But how in this large landscape, there's different departments, there's different divisions, there's different sectors, there's different people, teams that are handling different tasks in this large scope. And if we all understand the higher intent, the higher vision, and we still do our part, that will help, enable other coworkers, other teams, other departments to also, do their job, supporting one another. Then if we all stayed on task, we are able to achieve that final goal by doing our small little pieces. And that is one thing that when you're a leader, there's not necessarily a book of all the best possible solutions you could possibly do, right? Every situation is unique. You have to analyze and understand what resources you have and what constraints you have. And one I'd like to share, and this is though I was a company commander at the time, and this is one of my favorite stories. Um, in the National Guard, for those who aren't familiar with it, that's not their primary job. They are reservists that are working on a very part-time basis, but they have raised their right hand to serve in this country, and they'll go wherever they need to go and do various types of missions, whether it's state or federal, overseas or in the state, snowstorms, flooding, or even types of civil disturbances or things like that. We often sometimes get called up to do some civil disturbance situations. And, whenever you get these calls coming up, or a large event happening, maybe like one of the conventions or a large debate's going to happen somewhere, we at least know that's coming. And every, time these comes around, we have new people in our formation. People that used to be so knowledgeable and experienced are gone. So now we have a new younger crew, a new, maybe some new generation that never even done some of these things before. And it's part of our vision to ensure that they're also trained in the best possible way. Who are people in my company, in my formation, whatever it may be, in my team, that can help enable and pass on some of this great knowledge. Not every director or supervisor is an expert or has an expertise in certain fields out there. So the one thing that I realized quickly, that we had a large thing that we had to attend. We had to go do the presidential inauguration many years ago, and we had to go down to DC, and we had to help. We got deputized and we had to help Secret Service and other people, keeping the safety of the public, keeping the parade and all the motorcades that are going through also very safe, but also keeping people off the streets and making sure people are, not interfering in any way. And, also it's a very important type of mission. One thing that we did as a shared vision was, okay, we understand the problem. We understand that there's numerous ways we can go about this. We have a very young crew here. I pulled together some of our senior enlisted sergeants, supervisors, direct, whatever you may call them in civilian world, right? And some of them had a lot of this experience. And we realized a lot of them had, as full-time positions, they were police officers or corrections officers. They had ties to other departments. We wanted to leverage the resources in our community that has a lot of this expertise. And together we got a large exercise that we just made up all by ourselves to then kind of build towards before the big show, where we had 11 departments, different police departments. We had state police, we had emergency services of all types, ambulances, dispatches, you name it. And we put on a real life, large mock real scenario training for 72 hours of various, real life scenarios, writing a real script of things that could really happen, making training as real as possible to meet the intent of the vision. And we also made the training a lot harder than it was going to be at the inauguration. And it was very stressful. It was very intense. But it was, a worst case, bad scenario happened. This is how you would need to react to it. And it was very good with lots of stopping, pausing, reflecting. Let's talk about what just happened. How can we improve that? And having those after action reviews to build forward. So I think that with vision, it's important to communicate obviously the shared concept, getting what people want, also to see how do they view success, how do I view success, how should we kind of marry the two, but then also creating training that will ensure that people can meet not only the expectations of that success and get them ready. I think that's sometimes with targets and time and budget, there's a lot of restrictions. Things are always coming at a fast pace, and it's hard to get training involved that's really proper. And some people will just hand wave it, and that's usually going to set up for a disaster, right? So getting people to buy in early, and then also having them be part of the training. I didn't create all the entire training. I leveraged the resources I had, and together with their hand in the pot, they wanted to own it. They wanted to do it. They were happy with the product. And that is a sense of belonging that we as a team can agree that we did a really good thing. And, it got recognized, which was not what we were looking for, but the Army took notice, and a lot of people got, hey, good pat on the back here and there. And we got to, I fortunately even got to go into the Pentagon, and I got to receive a reward from former Chief of Staff, General Mark Milley, for literally putting on that large scale exercise and sharing that story and being like, this is something that would really worked out for us. And I hope that other people do the same. And that was a very cool thing.
Yeah, and you talked about vision, the front end and the back end. So first of all, you said it's shared, and really, I
Yes.
always tell people, leadership, you all have to be viewing the goals through the same lens. If you have 100 different people, we all have our individual goals and motivations, but like you said, we
Mhm.
collectively all have to be tied to a
Yes.
shared vision. So I love that vision has to be shared, and that combats that loneliness kind of thing. But
Mhm.
I love at the end you talked about it at an AAR for our listeners out there, after actions report. One of the greatest things about the military was whenever we did anything, good, bad, or ugly, we always did what we called a hot wash or an after actions report. And
Watch.
we'd
Yep.
sit there and we'd be very brutally honest with ourselves. What did we own? What did we mess up? And I get with civilian corporations and I'm like, so we messed up. I know, but we're on to something else. And I'm like, nothing changes until you identify the behavior and you implement something. So that's what I love about the military. The military was very honest with themselves.
Mhm.
Maybe not in the political realms, but we at the soldier
Sure.
level, we're very much about calling each other out on it. So I love that
Mhm.
for vision, you're going to constantly be, are we all in? Okay, we can't take this
Mhm.
50 different mountains. But number two, now that we've tried this vision, let's reevaluate what do we keep doing? What do we stop doing? And what are we doing that's already good? So I just love that because vision is a fluid thing. Your
Yes.
values are immutable, but everything else is open for negotiation and contingency
Mhm.
planning and the fog and friction of war. So I love that you really talked about vision from a forward aspect, but then you got to sit and evaluate it. I don't care if it was your vision. You got to look and see if that baby is ugly, and what are you going to do
Yes.
to evaluate that?
Yes, being honest too with it. Just because you love a project or a passion for it, if it didn't work, it didn't work, and that's
Right,
okay. Now,
right,
what's the next step? You're right.
right,
Hmm.
right. Root cause analysis and corrective actions.
Yes.
Otherwise, you're just flying all over the place. So it just
Yes.
always baffles me. So for our listeners out there, please, ownership. I always say, what can we own and what's going to happen different the next time? And a lot of people are like, well, it was completely beyond our control. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's always something. It's like saying you don't sin. Oh, come on now, I can remember the side story when I was getting some of my clearances. They're like, okay, well, when have you broken the law? And I'm like, I'm a law abider. And he's like, oh, so you never went over the speed limit? Never went rolled through a stop sign. I'm like, oh, you're talking about those laws. And it's like,
Those other ones, yeah.
like we can all own something in our lives that we're not
Yeah.
at the bar of excellence that we claim that we
Hmm.
are. So I love that you
Hmm.
talked about that with values. They're shared. And then the outcome is also shared.
Oh, absolutely. And if everyone's got a part of it, I think then yes, together, I think people feel a sense of belonging and responsibility to it as well. So
Yeah.
it's not just my vision anymore. Yeah,
Well, I love it.
absolutely.
Well, vision is multiple. Otherwise, it's just your viewpoint. But
That's
because
true.
vision, when you get the team, where two or more are
Hmm.
gathered, then it starts getting, that synergistic thing. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Lee. Now we talked about loneliness, weariness, abandonment, and vision. Some just wonderful, wonderful examples and insights and inspiration you gave us, as well as
Oh, geez.
information. I love it. I love it. But Lee, is there anything else you'd like to share with us from a leadership perspective while we have our listeners here?
Yeah, so I think, we hit so many good points. I feel that really there's three areas where I was mentioning it earlier. There's three skills really when it comes to a leader that we all kind of know. We have the administrative skills, we have the interpersonal skills, and the conceptual skills. And out of those three buckets, it's I think important to self-analyze where is the strongest skill set that you have out of those three. The more than likely there's probably one that is definitely going to be the where you feel the most comfortable in. And with administrative, that's the stuff where you're able to manage people and you're managing resources and showing some technical competence and stuff because you've been the job, you've done, actually getting the work done. But then there's the interpersonal side where I feel that some people are just more emotionally intelligent. You're able to show empathy. You can manage people, but anyone can do that because of your position and subordinates. But how empathetic really are you? What kind of emotional intelligence? How can you relate to where a person is experiencing on their job, in their life? We all have different life experiences, and also being able to manage conflict. That's also another part of that interpersonal. And then the conceptual part, whereas we were just talking about creating visions and strategic planning and problem solving. So some people may be more a conceptual leader. They're ones who really can make a vision, pop. People get in on the strategy and plan it together, solving problems, framing the problem, and thinking of the best solution. But then it goes into the administrative and interpersonal. Can ensure that it's communicated properly, or can you actually ensure that the resources are being managed properly, or supporting the people that to do the jobs and delegate. I feel that is a revolving wheel. In every phase of our life there may be a certain part where we're just better at one or the other. And I feel that some jobs sometimes take us away from our people because there's certain responsibilities we get siloed, and there's also certain other things that we have, projects we have to deal. And the higher you go up, it's lonelier at the top, like you mentioned before. So I feel that right now in my current phase of life, I'm with I'm with the team. I love that. I can talk. And I can relate. And it's great to go to work. It's good to have the friends. It's good to see also problems. And when they have a problem, they're able to talk to me about it. But when we're in that space sometimes too, I'm not able to see conceptually some of the bigger picture because I'm more focused on the team right here in front of me, where we're working together on certain goals. But there's other things out there that, I'll have to break away for a hot second, go to some of these meetings and realize that there's certain things in the long-term calendar that we need to address. And it's the balancing act. So where I think as a leader, it's a self-assessment out of the administrative, conceptual, interpersonal. where do you feel right now is your best and weakest? And where, if it's a weakest, does that require you to maybe do a sync, to meet up, have a meeting, to have a brainstorm session, whatever it may be, to fix one of those skills? I think that is self-assessment, and data is going to be your friend. That is the only way that we can truly reflecting on feedback and taking it with a grain of salt, and not getting upset by hearing that, and just being honest with ourselves. Where are we weak at right now? I think that's always the continual growth model for me.
I love it. And also, Lee, kind of what you talked about, self-awareness. Also, where do you lead best at? I mean, you alluded to it. We all have, some of us are more task focused, more IQ
Yeah.
focused, more EQ focused,
Yeah.
more people. And I even know when I was in high tech fields before, my disc is radically different than what it is now, since I've been 15
Mhm.
years in coaching and teaching. So we are works in progress. But I also think it's important to know where you serve best. I've been in Fortune 100. I was in the military. I'm in every bureaucracy known to mankind, and I finally realized I don't like bureaucracies. I'm a wild little maverick
Yeah.
that likes to, so I had to really look at myself and say, although I can climb the ladder, do I want to be in the big pond, or am I most at home
Mhm.
at this? So, and I had to walk away from things and say, well, I could have kept doing this, but in the end, as long as whatever you put your hand to, you do with all your might, it you know, you're going to be
It's gonna work
an asset or a blessing anywhere. But I know for me, I had to really look at myself and say, do I want to get better or bigger? And
out.
everyone's, you got to get bigger, you got to make more money, you got to be the C level. Yeah. And I'm like, I finally look at myself at 45 and go, I don't want this. This is not
Right.
fun for me. Can I do it? Absolutely. But
Sure.
yuck. And so I think it's just important too. You talked about self-awareness as leaders, just knowing, I coach a lot of people through life transitions where they are
Yeah.
going from working for somebody else to doing their own thing. And you just get
Mm.
that calling and you can't stop thinking about it. But it's a lot of different things as you are going through yours right now.
Mhm.
But you got to be true to yourself. You've got to be true to yourself.
Yes. Absolutely. Self-awareness is key. I love how you said that. Bigger versus better. I'm gonna use that from moving
Yeah,
forward.
I
That's
mean, some
good.
people want to be bigger and better,
Yeah.
and I'm like, that's cool. But I just want to get better in my little microcosm, my little niche, my little. We learned that from the PhD. There's one thing in
Mhm.
life I know better, one little nugget of knowledge that I know better than anybody else. I like that,
Mhm. That's
and then
right.
somebody else will build on that. But I mean, rather than be pontificating about everything, that's not what we're called to do. We have Chat GPT.
We have
To do that
ChatGPT now, right?
now.
We're
We
good.
don't need to do that. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely.
It
I
it's
love that. That's great.
yeah,
Thank you.
alright. Well, listen, Lee, thank you. How can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm really starting this journey myself. I'm really putting myself out there more now that I finished my degree and I'm working on different projects and stuff. So LinkedIn is definitely the best way to find me. My name's pretty easy to read. There's not many Lee Hardins out there on LinkedIn, I don't think, the last time I checked. So we're good there.
Good
So find
name.
me on there. And yeah, and the other thing that I've been kind of the gamification thing. I didn't get to talk too much about it briefly, but I started which for the younger crowd out there, a lot of kids are watching Twitch and stuff, which is kind of fun. It's just an on-stream service basically where a lot of people are playing games or doing reaction videos to certain things. They're watching a movie and stuff like that, and it's kind of a weird realm. But one thing that I realized that I absolutely loved was, spending time with my kids and doing things with them. And I feel that, now with current technology, geez, growing up, there's a few pictures of me and stuff, but my kids, there's thousands of pictures of them because I have my phone all the time capturing them, and I want to show them this stuff and have these memories later on in life. Like, watch this cool video and you were two, there's a lot of great things. So with Twitch, I just started doing a thing where I'm playing with my sons every so often, which is great. And it's awesome to see them, first off, be very good, playing random video games together, playing Mario Kart and silly things like that. But it's a good thing that I'm also leveraging as well. And also I think it's a good thing too. I've just started doing this Twitch channel thing. I'm not completely too dedicated with it, but I think that if the listeners out there have kids and stuff like that, they're looking for kids safe channels to watch. It's family oriented stuff. It's literally just a father and son father and sons hanging out and playing and engaging in something cool, And I think that's it's a young kind of infant stage. It just started literally a month ago. But I've noticed even in as I'm teaching as a professor and stuff, I'm interacting with the younger students out there that are in their 20s, and they're telling me about all of these things and how a lot of them grew up watching YouTube more than anything. Like they didn't watch Nickelodeon or Disney or something like that. They're watching other, videos in TikTok and all that stuff. So there's a lot of channels out there that are very safe and family oriented and things like that. And that's kind of a thing that's a little passion project on the side. So if you're on Twitch at all, or if anybody out there has even viewed that, or if you have hey, come check out our channel. So.
And we'll put that in the show notes, the link, your LinkedIn. And I saw your Twitch link that came through. So I was checking it out. That's really very, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. Well, again, you nailed it. Well, I can't believe it's your first. You did tremendous, just so much wonderful wisdom. So I just want to thank you again for being a part of this, Lee.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me on. This is a great time. Thank you.
You're welcome. And to our tremendous listeners out there, where would we be without you? Listen, if you like what you heard, please hit the like and the subscribe button. And if you do us an honor of a review, reviews mean everything. It helps other people that are looking for, hey, how can I be a tremendous leader, find us? We would be so thankful for that. And please reach out to Lee. Make sure you connect with him. The goal is the people you meet and the books you read. So you make sure you get a hold of Lee. And again, everybody out there, I know you are out there paying the price of leadership. We're right there with you. Keep on paying the price of leadership and have a tremendous rest of the day. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracy Jones. Find out more about Dr. Jones at www.tremendousleadership.com. If you've been ignited by something you heard in this episode, let us know by leaving a review for Tremendous Leadership wherever you listen to podcasts, or by sending us a message through www.tremendousleadership.com.